Every now and again when I'm driving over that way, pop in like. Loads of people go there when the roses are out. It's a beautiful place when all the roses are out. I just walk around the outside, try to put faces to them, and I know some of the names there, and just see what they look like. People will never go away. It'll be there forever.
My granddaughter, she done an article at school on the paper Alpha. Says, can you tell us a little bit about it? Oh, I says, there's not much to tell you. Did you jump from the rig? I says, oh, yeah. Was it high? I says, oh, it was high. She says, how high? Oh, I says, it was high.
When the black water comes from the depths of the Northern Ocean, then will be the beginning of our tribulations.
For as long as man has lived around the borders of the North Sea, he has intermingled his respect for it with fear and hatred. Is it too fanciful to imagine that the small sea towns which border this coast cower from the sea, perhaps as if in race memory of the invaders who came across these narrow seas, the Vikings? Or is it perhaps an awareness that the North Sea gives up its treasure unwillingly, that the men who have fished it for generations know that for them, the North Sea is a widowmaker?
Nothing remotely like them had ever been built before. From the seabed to the top of the drilling derrick would be 690 feet. The steel had to be protected inside and out by a combination of plastic coatings and electrolysis. Not something you can do in any old totter's yard.
This is one of the most exciting things that's happened to Europe for centuries.
And somehow these cumbersome steel contraptions had to be set afloat and towed 110 miles offshore, and to be set upright and pinned on the ocean bed. On launching day, nobody could guess what might happen next. It was as much religion as engineering. Were designed to withstand waves of 94 feet and winds of 130 miles an hour. In the splash areas, the impact of a wave could be several thousand tons, striking both sideways and downwards at the same time. Floating cranes had to be designed to lift into position units that were heavier and more cumbersome than anything that had ever been lifted before at sea. Nobody knew all the answers. Nobody could hope to think of everything. You could only do your sums and say your prayers. It wasn't expected that they'd ever turn out quite like this. Machinery has bred machinery. Platforms have grown up and out like junkyards on stilts.
Piper, one of the largest fields in the North Sea, holds the current world production record for a single platform. At the moment, more than a quarter of UK production.
A vision of hell, I thought it was. The first time I thought, God, how could anybody work on one of these things? Your ship seemed to be quite comfortable in comparison. You know, when you see these guys, these ants walking around in their hard hats and their overalls, I had nothing but admiration for them. You know, if that rig decides to get upset at you, there's only going to be one winner. 10 stone a man, 2,000 tons of rig. He's going to win all the time.
Everything was hunky-dory then. It was good. There was some cracking times before that night.
It was work. I didn't go to work there thinking we were particularly unsafe. It was a different environment, but it's an environment you soon got used to because a lot of it was just similar to working on shore. Except obviously they're getting there and they're getting home.
It was 112 miles, so just about an hour, 50 minutes to an hour, depending on the weather conditions. You just sat there and either fell asleep or read a book until you got out to the platform.
It was all a new experience then. I have seen people fly out, step off, and say, no, I can't do this. I've seen that happen, yeah.
I always thought if there was ever going to be an accident, it would be the transfer there and back in a helicopter. Because you do think about it. If anything ever happened, you think once you get on the platform, you're safe for a fortnight, which obviously I got that wrong as well, so my judgment's not brilliant, is it?
Big barrel, big worry. The rock top like it is in the North Sea. Here we are, far from home.
It was sort of, we're not meant to be there. You're stuck in the middle of nowhere, but you're seeing other rigs around you, where people are in exactly the same situation. There's no way you would exist if you didn't get on. It was as simple as that. So you did. You got on and you had a good laugh. You made a laugh of it. Because if you didn't make a laugh, you'd probably cry.
Okay, one steak monkey gland. T. Madsen, well done sirloin. Well done sirloin. Pat, well done. Well done, Pat.
The Piper was the main keyway for the oil because the oil pipeline going back onshore came via the Piper. We took the oil from the Tartan, we took the oil from the Claymore, 2 more rigs, and we piped it then into the main lines going ashore. And that's what caused a lot of the problems.
I think quite a few people didn't like the Piper particularly, but it was the first platform I'd ever been on, and I thought it was quite good. I mean, the food was good, the accommodation was good, the work area was good, and I thought it was quite, to me, quite safe. The Piper had just one standby boat, the Silver Pit. Everyone was trained in firefighting within the platform itself. Every week you did your lifeboat drills where you went to your lifeboats, and you also on board you had all your hoses and equipment for survival in that respect in firefighting. There's also the Tharos, which was the accommodation rig next to the Piper. It was there as a firefighting barge as well. It had water cannons on board there.
The Tharos, wallowing only slightly in a force 9 gale, has all the grace and clean-cut lines of a floating building site. This 30,000-ton barge has not been built for beauty, but for situations like this. A blowout, the oil man's nightmare, and it could happen in the North Sea any time. The water cannons on the Tharos can envelop a burning rig. It won't put the fire out, but it will stop the rig melting. Below decks, there's a hospital and intensive care unit that can cope with 90 men suffering from the burns, hypothermia and broken limbs that would follow a disaster offshore.
Aboard the platform, they don't talk about safety much. They don't talk about disasters at all. They all know it only needs one careless or foolish man for a North Sea platform to become a flaming corpse.
There's a saying on platform that in the priorities, safety came first, production second. But we always said safety only came first if it didn't interfere with production.
Just felt that they were looking to cut costs all the time. When you see now there's how much money is involved in oil, there was probably no need for it.
Keep it flowing, pump it out. It was a time bomb waiting to happen. It was a time bomb. And it happened.
It was an exceptionally busy time on that day. There was a lot of maintenance going on in the rig. We had the gas module shut down, and we had to get this gas module back up and running as quickly as possible. We knew we had a few days to do it in, or we thought we did. Put it that way.
This was the first time that they tried to do a shutdown, keeping part of the platform still pumping oil. It was a live experiment they were doing. At the end of the day, obviously, it didn't work.
The sea wasn't rough, it was a pleasant day. The work went all right. We didn't have any blockages in the blast machine, as I remember right. Yeah. And nobody mixing paint with their hands. The guys knew they were going to be going across the Tharos to sleep at night. But one of the lads came to me. He'd just been married 6 weeks and he wanted overtime. And I couldn't think of anything to give him. And then I thought, oh, the compressors need filling, diesel. Well, you can do that, fill the compressor, and I'll see if you can stay on here tonight instead of having to go back to Tharos.
The contract lads were knocking off from the gas module and they came down to the instrument shop and I was writing out the log to hand over because the next day I was going off. And I said to them, OK, lads, you can knock off. And I sent them back up, not realising that I would never see them again. Another 10 minutes and it could have made the world a difference. They might have survived. But you don't know that at the time. You don't realise that. You think you're doing them a favour, a good turn. But it wasn't, as it turned out.
How do you read me now, over?
Loud and clear, go ahead.
Full situation. The Piper platform explosion on the Piper platform, followed by fire.
Jesus Christ.
It's 25 years ago, and I can remember it as if it was yesterday. Well, we had a problem which was very much a routine problem we've seen a lot of times before. What we call the condensate injection pump shut down. We called condensate what the layperson would call LPG, the stuff you buy in the blue bottles for your barbecue or your fire. So we needed to get it going quickly again. But there wasn't a panic about that because the condensate pumps, from an equipment point of view, tripped more than any other piece of equipment. It was just, oops, the condensate pumps tripped. Accepted the alarm, and then got the gas alarms in, and it just all came in together. All the alarms are coming in, and every time I'm trying to stop one, there's another one coming in, so I couldn't stop the klaxon coming in. And the explosion came. Next second, I'm 15 foot away, up the other end of the control room.
It wasn't just a big bang, it was more of a crump. And you felt it right through the rig. The instrument container was, shaking like, and you knew it was something big.
We require any assistance available. We had an explosion, a very bad explosion and fire. The radio is
I can see myself in the control room now. I can see the smoke and the destruction at that end of the control room. My hearing was okay because I could hear some of the alarms going. My hip was hurting. I struggled to walk a bit. The logical thing to do was then to get out of the smoke, which is what I did. When we got outside, and we were concerned because the platform alert hadn't gone off, which the fire panel used to, part of the logic used to put the alert off, and that hadn't got out. And the other thing we were concerned about, we didn't have any fire water. At this point, Bobby V and Robbie Carroll both put breathing apparatus on to go into the smoke to try and start the fire pump, which was the control room operator's job. But because of my hip injury and this, I was struggling to move about. Never mind, put BA set on.
And what happened to them?
They were both killed. Both of them.
I started making my way to my lifeboat, and I met two lads from the control room with gas masks on, and they said to me, "No, Gilroy, the pumps have been blasted to pieces. On the initial explosion, they've been taken out." And he said, "And the lifeboats have been smashed as well." I went on down to the 68-foot level. As I'm walking along, you're looking at a sprinkler system, and all you're seeing is drops of water. So the valve for the water had obviously opened, but there was no pressure. There was just the residual water dripping down from the sprinklers. So knew then we were in serious trouble.
With radio, Saros. Yes, we have a satellite link with the incident room in Aberdeen, and we are preparing to assist, over. Mayday, we're badging in the radio room, We cannot go anymore, we're on fire, over.
The only way was down. One of the riggers found a big rope. He tied it to the handrail and threw it over the side. So I managed to get hold of a life jacket, and I went down the rope with other people and managed to get inside into the Zodiac rescue craft off the Silver Pit. The Silver Pit, it was this little boat. Now and then you'd see it doing this in the sea, and we used to say, and whatever happens on here, you'd never get me on there. And I was really pleased to get on there.
It was our job to man what we called the fast rescue craft. When we launched for the first time, the fire was still very localised. What happened after that was one of the guys come running down the spider deck. The spider deck was apparently the lowest deck on an oil rig. Now, at that time, we just thought the guy was going to say, "Right, OK, boys, we see that you're there. Can you hang off? Because we might get problems." But kind of when we looked at the look on his face, we thought, this is a man that really doesn't want to be there. Then there was guys coming down the spider deck. And most of them were just dressed in their normal everyday gear. And that's when we realised, there's something really not right about this.
Wick radio, resolution, we are 50 miles south, ETA in 4.5 hours, over. Wick radio, Mayday relay, this is the Sunbeaven. We shall be on the look
That night, I was in the Sandhaven. It was a supply vessel, but converted into a safety vessel that could do supply work as well at the same time. I could see smoke coming out of one end of the piper. I knew it was a big problem then, because there was no lifeboats in the water. And I thought, well, men could be in the water. Even in that decent weather, not going to last long in the North Sea. So I launched the boat, and off the lads went, and I followed them up. It was Brian Batchelor, Ian Leatham, and Malcolm Story in the boat that went up to the piper.
The initial phase was for all personnel to go to their lifeboats. But I think what happened that night was just completely different to anything that was planned. You couldn't get to your lifeboats because they had to pass through an area where the fire had taken hold, and it had taken hold so quickly. The amount of smoke around, I thought, there's no helicopter coming in, you can't even see to come in. It was that thick with smoke. The Tharos, we thought, would maybe put the bridge between the Tharos and the platform down, but the Tharos had pulled off, and no way could that get close, because they would put themselves at risk as well. So it was confusing and not quite, people weren't quite sure, really, where to go next.
Well, there hadn't been an abandoned ship. There was no official abandoned ship on the Piper that night. There was no one said, OK, everyone off the rig, because there was nowhere to go. We saw that the divers had actually gone down a knotted rope, and they left the knotted rope there. We said, well, we'll follow them down. I'll be quite honest with you, my adrenaline hadn't started going at this point. But you hadn't been up and seen the actual fire. I had a life jacket on at the time, so I took it off. And at this moment, there was a massive explosion. I just went up on the ball of one foot, kicked off on the other, and spun round. And then I didn't know what was below me. I just knew I had to get out of that flame. And most of the lads who I was standing with never made it. 3 dead that I know of. 3 of us that were in that area. But a good few of the lads never were seen again.
I was maybe 50, 60, 70 yards away from the platform, and the heat was intense, even then. The lads jumping off the rope, falling off the rope, jumping over the side. It was horrific. The legs had these, like, protectors on them to stop the supply ships bumping against them. I can remember the one lad falling off from a height and bumping onto this and bouncing off his back. I thought, oh, I can't remember his name, but I met him later and he hurt his back, but he survived.
You wonder why people would jump out of a 30, 40-storey block window when fire's at the back. Well, I know why now. Because I jumped as well, and I was very lucky to survive. when I hit the sea, I went very deep, very deep. You could see up above, the flames were lighting up the surface of the sea. So I started swimming up towards the surface. You're blowing out bubbles and trying to keep, pace with the bubbles, sort of thing, which is old films that you've seen,
What I learned at sea was, you might have got away for a rig, you might have got off a sinking ship, yeah? But once you're in that water, that's when you really do need all your survival skills. If you're working in a factory, your alarm bell goes, you go into the car park, you're safe, yeah? You get your name ticked off, the fire brigade arrives, yeah? That doesn't happen at sea, particularly not on a ship, particularly not on an oil rig, yeah? If that fire alarm goes off, if you can't fight that fire, if something happens to your rig or happens to that ship and you end up in the water, that's when your survival starts. That's the beginning of your problems. It's not the end of your problems, it's the beginning of your problems.
As I got towards the surface, I was struggling then for breath. I didn't think I was going to make it. And I started swimming a bit more and, well, blow this bubble business. And you start panicking a bit, and finally I did hit the surface. I looked up and you were under a grill. There's no other word to describe it. The top of my head started to cook. Steam was rising off the water, and I was really in a bad way then. I thought, I'm going to die either. I'm going to be burnt to death or I'm going to drown. And I said, I think I'd sooner drown, I said. I think that's a more peaceful death. And so I plunged myself under the water and pedalled down under the water. And I thought I was maybe going under for the last time. It wasn't as if I had an option. I just had a choice of the one way or the other. My decision was that I thought drowning might be an easier death than burning. I got an image of my younger daughter, and I'd promised to give her the same type of wedding as I'd given my eldest daughter, which was a grand affair. It had gone very well, and as I say, my youngest daughter, she'd said, look, I'd like a wedding like that. And I'd promised, I said, you can get a wedding like that, no problem. And this sort of clicked with me, and I said, I've got to survive this. I knew I had to push through the barriers and make this happen. Went and hit the surface again, and I was a bit further away from the rig, and the flames were curling up a little as you got further away from the rig. And the currents were taking me away as well, thank goodness. And I started swimming then. I noticed a body quite close. He had a life jacket on. I didn't realise he was, and I thought it's someone. I'll go over and see how they are, like, and I swam over towards him and realised it was face down still and he was not moving at all. And I realised he was dead. And he had a life jacket, which I didn't have now. And I thought, I can't steal his life jacket. I just couldn't do that. I couldn't take it off him. I said, well, what I'll do is I'll rest against it on his back. And I didn't want to lift him up to look who it was, because you knew it could be someone you knew. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that. And you didn't want to... You wanted to treat him with respect. I leant on him, as I say, and it gave me a respite. Even now I feel a little guilty about doing that. My strength started building up again a bit. And then I heard voices shouting me. And it was lads who were clinging to a quarter of a lifeboat. And so I let go of the body and swam over to the lifeboat. There was about 5 of us on this bit of lifeboat. One of the lads, Eric, a French lad, he was in a very bad way. He was badly burned, and you could see that just looking at him. And then we were looking around to try and find a way of surviving again. And the Silver Pit, we were waving like mad. It went past us, waving like mad, and never saw us. And then it came back, going the other way, and it saw us then. They came up to us and dragged us on board. At that point, I felt even euphoric, because we'd survived. We'd actually lived through it. You didn't realise just how many people had gone in that night, you know. We look back on that now and say that was day one in our life, our new life. That's the way some of us look at it, you know.
Fire in the night, yeah. You were hearing explosions. I could only describe it as a kind of like a staccato, you know. Pop, pop, pop. Maybe a couple of explosions, and then a pause, another explosion, and then a bigger pause. But I mind to think at that time, we didn't have a choice here. We have to get them on the rescue craft. We have to get them to safety. Men were screaming. At the time, you know, you thought to yourself, but I have to do this. I really have to get you off this life raft and get you somewhere safe. At one time, there was a massive double explosion above us, and I honestly thought for me this was it. I thought this, you know, we're going to, you know, I thought to myself, we're going to die here. But like everything else, a split second later, you're still here, eh? You've survived, you're here. You know, and that was at the time, I think it was the diver. I watched the diver swimming towards us. he went down. And I thought, we've lost him. Then he bobbed back up again. And I thought, great. And I'm still coming, because we're still trying to push towards him. He's still swimming. He goes under for the second time. And I thought, right. Then he bobs up again, eh? Then he swims, and he's almost right at us. And I mind he went down for a third time. And I don't know what got me, but there's an old seaman's adage that says, if you go down for a third time, you'll never come up. I don't know where that adage comes from, but I remember sort of thinking. And what I remember doing was thinking, I shoved my hand under the water, more in hope than expectation. But somehow, I managed to come up with this guy with the head of the hair. Then he asked me, you know, I remember like that. And almost the minute his head appeared above the water, Jimmy Clark, Andy Kylo grabbed him under the armpits, and we unceremoniously hauled this guy on board. It was Eric. Sadly, out of the 36 guys that we had rescued, unfortunately Eric didn't make it.
Just confirm we've got 3 on board?
Yep. Okay, how far are we going to take you guys?
We're just going to the Faros again, the one that's doing the firefighting.
Okay. That's what we can do.
Rescue 138 Tharos, you are carrying 1 fatality, is that correct?
We're now carrying 2.
Understood, sir.
Replying, yes, it's impossible for the helicopter to land or use its windshield. Where our fire monitors are throwing the water, it's very difficult for us to assess where the water is going. Can you tell me, please? You're not touching the platform. You're short, about halfway. You're going to get rid of the platform there.
All night, it's horrendous. We're all doing the same, trying to get off. It's one of the rare occasions football didn't come in my head.
There's still emergency lights that usually light up the passageways. Right along to the end, up the stairs to the canteen area. Seen some guys with the snorkels on and the masks heading out the door, telling everybody to stay in the canteen area. By then it was all smoke and everything upstairs. It was a mess. The windows breaking, glass and everything. I went back up to look for my painter, but he wasn't in the first hall. He'd already been inside the canteen. And you couldn't get in that door because there were heaps of guys standing round it. Then again, if I had gone in the canteen, I wouldn't have been here today.
You're going up and down, trying different doors, and we just like crack the door, and you could hear the roar of the fire. Every door we tried, it was the same. That's when all the lights went out. Just when you get in the flutters, crikey, I don't want to get off this. This is when I bumped into the roommate, Bill. I just didn't recognise him. His face was black.
Saw Barry on the stair. I could tell. Told him, as I'd been on the pipe deck and it was far as I was concerned, it was clear. It was just smoke coming from a burning skip. He said, OK. As I've told the guys upstairs earlier, it was clearer down here, but they didn't want to come down. He said, no, just lead on, he said. So we just took off along the passageway.
We was making his way down different levels. Some parts we could get down the stairs, other parts was on fire. And we had to go along the beam, down a column, you know, just sliding down here and walking here and jumping about different areas of the rig. And the steeler had to be trained and used to walking along the beam. Bill, he was a painting foreman. It wouldn't have been so easy for Billy. He'd come down like a gun. You support each other, and it's your friend for life, then, isn't it?
Barry seen a painter rope. And he threw it over. He said, we're going down the rope. And I said, I'll lead on.
We get down the rope into the sea. It didn't feel cold at the time, and I fell in the sea before. I think I could swim in it all night after getting off that. Then Willie's climbing onto the rope, starting to come down, and I thought, he can't swim. It was in the water, the next minute it was hanging in the air, like a bell ringer going up and down.
When the swell started hitting my feet, that's when I stopped and just held on, and Barry swimming just out from me, shouting, come on, Bill, come on. And I said, I can't swim. No. And he kept treading water, watching me. And then the boat came round, one of the fast rescue craft. So I let go then. When they came near me, I let go then, and they just hooked me in.
We have in fact pulled back somewhat. We are going to try and move back towards the platform to endeavour to keep things cool and to hopefully prevent some of the underwater explosions that we're frightened of.
I had to pull away from the rig because it was too hot. I was at the back of the bridge, which was, I had another maybe 40 metres of ship, and then another couple hundred metres to the rig. And I couldn't bear the heat through the glass at the back of the bridge. It was a tremendous heat. But my lads, they'd already picked some men up. As they came away from the rig, the coxswain, Brian Batchelor, was one of my best buddies. He saw another couple of men coming down the bulkheads, so we turned round and went back to pick these up. Well, one of them fell in the water, they picked him up. The second one, when he got down to the lope, which was about 20, 30 foot off the water, he wouldn't let go. Tremendous noise, tremendous hiss, and then bangs and more explosions, and a terrible noise. There must have been a big pocket of gas underneath the rig that was just sitting there. And the spark must have got down to it and it just came down onto the water. The boat was there, then the boat was gone. I kept on calling and calling on the radio. Answer me. Come on, Brian. Come on, Rescue 1. Where are you? Come on, answer me. Of course, there was no answer, because I wasn't there.
Yeah, copy that. Sunhaven, can you confirm the rescue was gone, or?
It was wrong side of the rig when there was the explosion. Not been able to contact it since.
Okay, copy that.
Shots I have seen on television since then, seeing that the amount of flame there was then and the time scale, and I think to myself, I was still on that then with all that fire going on. I often wonder how I ever managed to survive it, how any of us managed to survive being on the platform that long. Time scale now, I can't actually put a figure to it. People were just milling along thinking, where should we go, what should we do? And the galley area was where everyone was sort of congregating. I just thought there's no point waiting for things to happen. I had to see for myself that if I could get off, I was looking after me by that time.
How were you feeling at that time? Did you realise?
Crapping myself. Yeah. You realised how serious it was. It's like, how am I going to get off here? There was no obvious way of getting away from the platform. With not knowing you were boxed in. It was filling up with smoke. It was obvious that it wasn't the place to be. There was a guy stood next to me, he had a torch. I said, well, it's no good saying it, we need to get outside.
I started thinking about going up to the heli deck to get away from the smoke. That was about the time I think an explosion came.
Stay on the radar, it's bloody bright.
I think that was the same time as lots of people who were up there themselves decided to jump, and some people jumped from the helideck.
Well, we were at the platform for the helideck, which I learned later on it's 175 feet from the sea level. We were looking down on the Tharras, and we're waving to them for to try and do something to help with. They were just standing, looking up at us, waving to them. Walked across the helideck, trying to work out what I was going to do now. There was a fella just standing, staring. I walked past him, I said, you can't stand there, mate. I said, you got to try and get off. And he just looked at us. Never said anything, just looked at us, looked straight through us. And I walked away into the smoke again and never seen him again.
Decided to go up onto the heli deck, but just as soon as we got over to that side, the major explosion, the 36-inch pipe, I think it was there, it fractured, and that's when the huge fireball engulfed the rig. You just didn't know what it was, but you just instinctively knew, God, there was something terrible's happened.
Think I'm going to die here?
Oh, yeah. It's had a few prayers, but can I just stop there a sec? Just... Yeah, it was, sorry.
Did you...
I thought we were doomed. I really did. It's said a few prayers, and as I said, there was a huge explosion, and it blew the end of this cabin off. So it was an escape route, but at the same time, there was a big hole opened in the floor, and I don't know what happened to the two guys that were there. To me, they just disappeared, so I think they actually went through the hole, but... Can I just stop again? Sorry.
One of the guys I worked with, he'd been off and he'd been in his summer holidays. He says to me, he'd glad that he'd such a good holiday with his kids and that, and you know, he came offshore with happy memories of his family.
Did he make it?
No. I met his wife a couple of times in Aberdeen, and I told her what had happened. And I think she was glad that we were there together.
It's a difficult thing to say.
I've not said it for 24 years or so. You go 1 yard one way or 1 yard the other way, and it might have been me.
The explosion had cleared the smoke somewhat for a while. It was either stay there and get fried or jump, not knowing what was below. It didn't really seem to matter at the time, you know what I mean? So, thankfully, what was below was water.
I was like down on my knees and that. I think I was trying to just get a rest or try to think. I even spoke to my wife at the time. I said, "Oliver, I'm not going to get stuck on here. I'm going to get off." And that's what I said to my wife. Just trying to think what to do next. I just stepped out off the heli deck into the water.
I ran over to the north side of the platform, and I had a look over, and I took my life jacket off and threw it in front of me, and I took 2 steps, because there's safety netting around the heli deck. I took 2 steps off, or 2 steps, and jumped off. And I jumped off, and I just thought to myself, I says, what the fuck have I done?
The Zodiac took me to the Tharos, and they lifted out the water, and as it was lifting up, all you could see was what was left of paper. It was sorry, it was horrendous. It was, I mean, I honestly thought I must be the only one that survived that.
As the night wore on, we were consciously aware that we were finding less and less guys. The last time that we went to the rig, The whole world just seemed to be on fire. The noise was absolutely deafening. I could not begin. If you could imagine a blowtorch and then magnify the sound of that blowtorch maybe 3,000-4,000 times, and you'll get an idea of the noise. It was a cacophony of hell. It's the only way I could describe it. Never forget that noise. Never forget that noise.
It must have been an hour I'd been going around the platform trying to find a way off. I think it was getting to the stage of being quite fatalistic by that time. The platform was beginning to break up. I could hear the gratings breaking, you know, and it's just a noise, it's like an eerie noise of things just creaking and grinding, and as if the welding was melting. The supports gave way. The area we were on actually tilted. Everyone just shook hands, and you know, we were sort of saying, well, that was it. We were just shaking hands and saying, this is the end. I thought, we've got to do something, go somewhere, do something, keep trying at least to get away from this. I came out of this tool store, and that's when I could see clear air. The crane operator dropped the pipes onto the deck, and they were creating like a bridge to walk along. So I could see this guy at the end of these pipes. He'd been walking along the pipes and jumped off into the sea, and I thought, I'm going the same way, that's where I'll go. The deck was very, very hot. It was hot to the touch. I could feel it through my feet. It definitely was melting. I had my life jacket and I had my survival suit on, and I stood looking down, and I couldn't really see see if there's any obstructions at all, but I did as you should always do before jumping in from any distance at all, was put hand across the life jacket, hand over your nose to stop the water going too far up, and went to jump. But as I was doing that, someone from behind said that his feet were on fire, and gave me a shove. I just remember going head over heels and thinking, I'm getting away from the flames, but I'm going to break my neck hitting the water now. But I don't even remember hitting the water. I came up on my back, marvelling how warm the water was. I came across a petition floating, so I managed to pull myself onto that and paddle away from the platform using some trainers which were floating around. I was just thinking then, thank God for that, I'm away from that inferno, away from the smoke, which was so, you know, I think the smoke was as bad as the heat. But to be in clear air, floating away from the platform was a great relief. I'll say the trainers were floating by, that's what I used to start paddling away, and also boxes of cigars. And although I used to smoke cigarettes, having inhaled all that much smoke, I thought I'd pack the cigarettes in, but I'll start smoking cigars.
could hear the rig in its death throes, and it was all a big moaning of metal as it sort of melted and was bending, and it wasn't doing it silently. It was, you could hear the noise, and it was like a big, you know, it was a, well, I can't get anywhere near it, but it's a sound that'll be with me forever, like, you know, it was just the death of the platform that was, I was hearing there, like.
And then one big chunk just, it's like slow motion, just went. And all you saw was legs. And the end bit of the rig still stuck up, burning. And realising what was on the seabed. All them men.
I don't know if they were still alive at that point, but anyone who was remaining there, that was them right down to the bottom of the sea. Aye. And there was a lot of folks, a lot of lads I knew there.
I sort of just see it floating and everybody be kind of saved. But it just had someone straight under.
You regret seeing that now?
Yeah. Yeah, I should never stood and watched it. I don't suppose that's something I'll ever forget. I'm glad of one thing, all the painters were off the rig for that night. I'm glad they were all off, except the one, like.
Can you remember the painter's name?
Sean Glendenning. From Brechin. At least I'd like to think it might to get Barry off.
Okay, so just a bit of water, that's fine.
I'm not sure the number of casualties. I believe it's about 150 fatalities, but I'm not sure yet. We haven't got the full numbers.
Rescue 01, which is the next aircraft you can task for evacuation, sir?
Rescue 13 will be inbound in about 5 to 10 minutes from Morocco.
don't remember any of the folk I was with recognising anybody from the ambulances. And as time went on and the long gaps developed, sadness and a bit of despair set in. And then word came, no more helicopters. There was a kind of stunned silence. And then groups started forming, crying, numb. What do we do now? Gradually, folk just drifted away. And by maybe 5 o'clock, 5:30, all was quiet.
My wife didn't find out till after 9 that I'd survived. Obviously, they were phoned up all the time, and she says all they kept saying to him was, missing, presumed dead. But thankfully, they said I was missing, but I wasn't, and I'm definitely not dead.
When you got ashore and off the helicopter, you could see wives and everything looking for the husbands. Aye, it was grim. At that point, you realised that you'd truly survived. I was burnt, yeah. My head was badly burnt, and my hands were burnt, and my back, I had a slight burn on my back as well, so. There happened to be a meeting in Birmingham of all the burns doctors in the country. They dropped everything, and they came up, and they were there to treat us. Can't thank them enough for that.
It was me and Roy Carey were just in the ward. There wasn't any charring of the skin on my arms or anything, so there was no direct contact with flames. It was just the heat radiation that was coming off the rig. And they reckon it was actually happened during the fall that I had. I just wanted to see my mum, my sister. I was told they were on their way to the hospital, so just kind of kept going till I seen them. And then they come in. And
what was that like?
Well, amazing. Amazing, you know. You see my mum's face.
You must have unfortunately lost some friends that night. How are you managing to cope with that?
There's 2 friends I work with. Them have now been seen. The lads has got families now, you know. Whereas we've got injuries and that, at least we are here to see our families. You feel sorry for your friends, you know, you've lost, you know, so it's one of them things. Can't be helped.
Okay.
In the hospital, the people who was in the ward where I was had a laugh. I don't know, it was the point of us being alive. It was like everybody was trying to cheer each other up. But it was like we're all pals together.
Where have you been?
Getting a beer, please.
Cheers, mate.
You're welcome. Cheers. It's been a good friendship. It's just for some reason we meet up every year. We know what each other's survived and we know what each other's been through. On occasions, a Piper Alpha might crop up, but it'll be a very small subject what it's about.
Propose a toast, right?
Well, same.
You do it.
Same next year. Next year.
Next year.
Same old thing. Meet up again. We've had 25 years, so...
These are the next 25.
Just progress. 25?
God willing. There you go. There you go.
I actually went back to sea afterwards. And one of the ships I was on was a guard ship for the Piper Alpha. By that time, we stopped being a rescue vessel and we were a guard ship. And the heat shield was there. And it kind of reminded me of a squat, ugly crab, you know, with these two big... And you hated this thing. You hated this thing because it caused so much misery. You didn't want it to be there. You wanted it wiped for the face of the earth. And yet, I was also there when they brought the Piper Alpha down, when they demolished it. And I mind it coming down, and I mind the sea swallowing it up, you know, the big wave, the sea swallowing it up, and then everything returned to normal. But then I remember thinking, but there's nothing there anymore. I hated it for being there, but when they demolished it, you hated it for not being there because there was nothing there that said something terrible, a great tragedy's happened here. The four of us in the rescue craft that night were awarded the George Medal. We accepted the medal on the premise that everybody on the Silver Pit and everybody in the rescue craft that night deserved the George Medal. Even after 25 years, I still live with the Piper Alpha. It's always going to sit with me, it's always going to be there. I can't get away from it and there's no point in trying. And I wouldn't want to now, I wouldn't want to forget about the Piper Alpha.
Piper will never go away. There's always a reminder. I wasn't a good boy the first year. Drinking, digging holes. I started digging a hole in my garden. And I was thinking neighbours was asking the wife what's going on. She'd just leave them. Just got a spade out and started digging. I think by the time I finished digging, I could just see across the top of it. And then I took to the drink. That carried on for nearly a year. To try and deaden it, forget it. But it wouldn't go away. And then I went to that survivor's help and that they were on. It took them a long time to get me there, but they kept asking for me. Attended the meetings, I didn't have much to say. They thought that would help talking it out, you know, but it didn't. And then Sue Jane came along. And that helped, yeah. She had been attending the meetings to see if she could get somebody to go and pose a model for her, like. I said, right, I'll do it for nothing. And that was it.
Hi, Bill.
Oh, hello, darling. Nice to see you, is it? Aye. She never asked me now, she just listened. That was good therapy, yeah. Great to see the finished thing like that. There was quite a crowd there that day when they unveiled it and all. Yeah. It was a sad time.
Yeah.
See, it was easy to speak to you because you're yourself there and there was no bunch of people sitting around listening.
Yes.
So.
Just us talking about it together and having good times.
Especially talking about it.
Yes.
Because we did talk about it a lot. Like
We did. And how does it feel like when you're looking at the central figure?
Oh, no.
Yeah? Does it bring it all back to you?
I said, she could have given me a smaller nose.
It just seemed such a waste of life, all those people. I went back out there again and worked back offshore for another 12 years after the Piper, I think. Maybe I laid the ghost to rest there. And I've given up smoking cigars for the time being.
Rocked off like it is in the North Sea. Here we are, far from home.
Aye. Yes, I do recognise people here now. And there's me. My goodness, that's me there. Yes, sometimes I think about them and they're always the same age, you know, they're always as they were. You can't imagine them getting old, you know, it's just how you've always knew them, like, and that was the case of it. They stay young in your mind while you grow old.